I'm Rachel Whitmore. I'm 31 years old. And last month, I found out I wasn't even invited to my own sister's engagement party. The gift I spent 3 days wrapping? It showed up on her Instagram. Still sealed. No name. No thanks. Just a perfect prop in someone else's curated life. They didn't forget me. They erased me, then told themselves I chose silence. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't gone. I was upstairs. Literally. 2 floors above Hailey, in the very company she'd just joined. Before I tell you how one quiet email, one slip at dinner, and one name dropped too casually cracked open the illusion, tell me where you're watching from. Drop a comment if your family ever wrote you out of the story and called it peace. Subscribe for more stories where justice doesn't scream. Sometimes it just shows up on the org chart. And this time, the name they left off the invite list was the one they had to answer to. The ribbon had come undone twice before I finally managed a bow that didn't look like an apology. I adjusted it again, smoothing the gold edge with trembling fingers, even though no one would see it but me. The box sat there like a promise I still believed in. A silent offering wrapped in lavender paper with silver specks that reminded me of Hailey's favorite earrings. Brendan had mentioned them once, in passing, like he always did when he let something slip about his fiancée. I'd listened closely. Too closely, maybe. I checked the time. 3:47 p.m. A soft drizzle clung to the window pane. The apartment was too quiet. No music, no hum from the heater, just the occasional pop of wood from the old floor. April in Charlotte was usually lush, fragrant. Today it smelled like wet dust and indecision. I dialed Mom first. The phone rang longer than usual before she picked up. "Rachel," she said, her voice clipped. Not cold, never cold, but controlled, like a carefully edited voicemail greeting. "Hi, Mom," I said. "I was just wondering if you needed help with anything. I could come early, help set up for the engagement party." There was a pause. I could hear her swallow. "Oh, sweetie, that's very thoughtful," she replied, her tone hovering between gratitude and avoidance. "But Hailey's got everything under control. You know how organized she is. Really, there's not much to do." I smiled even though she couldn't see it. "Still, I don't mind. I haven't seen everyone in a while." Another pause. "Well, we're actually keeping things quite small this time. Just family and a few of Brendan's colleagues. Hailey's parents are hosting most of it on their side and, well, it's complicated. Just family." The words buzzed louder than the rain. "I see," I said as gently as I could manage. "Thanks anyway." She hung up soon after. No "talk soon," no "love you." I held the phone for another few seconds before placing it down. Maybe she didn't mean to sound that way. Maybe there wasn't enough space. Maybe... I called Dad. He answered on the second ring. "Rachel," he said. Always just the name, no greeting, no warmth. "Hey, just wanted to check in. Mom said the party's going to be small." He exhaled sharply. "Yes. Hailey's folks are putting most of it together. They've got a guest list, and we didn't want to interfere." I hesitated. "But I'm family." His silence landed like a slap. Then, "We think it's better this way. There's no need to complicate things." I just thought, "Rachel." His voice turned low. "Let it be." Click. I didn't realize I was still gripping the phone until I heard the low beep signaling the call had ended. I placed it back in its cradle like it might bite me if I moved too quickly. I sat with the gift for a while, just watching the curve of the bow, the soft shine of the wrapping paper. The effort I'd put into it felt stupid now. The ribbon mocked me. The box felt like a symbol of something I'd been trying to prove my whole life, that I could be useful, included, loved. I stood and placed the gift on the edge of the coffee table, careful not to disturb the arrangement. Then I sat again. My hands felt cold. The rain turned heavier outside, tapping the windows like it wanted in. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, like always. The first time they'd left me off a Christmas card, I told myself it was a printer's mistake. The year they forgot to call on my birthday, I figured they'd been overwhelmed. The time they posted Brendan's promotion dinner but didn't even mention my graduation, I made excuses then, too. They probably didn't realize. It slipped their minds. Maybe next time. But this was deliberate. I traced a finger along the gift's edge. It looked so small now, out of place in the middle of my living room like a relic from a fantasy that had expired without warning. I told myself quietly, it's probably for the best. Then I stared at the silent phone again, the gift still beside me, and realized for the first time that they never intended to include me. This time, I wouldn't just disappear quietly. Not anymore. They posted the party everywhere, except my name. The notification chime pierced the quiet like a needle through silk. Rachel rolled over in bed, the glow from her phone casting pale light across the sheets. 12:13 a.m. Her thumb hesitated before unlocking the screen. Hailey's Instagram was the first thing that loaded. A carousel of images, fairy lights strung across a manicured backyard, champagne flutes catching candlelight, Brendan mid-laugh, Hailey in an ivory dress that looked too bridal for an engagement party. The seventh photo stopped Rachel cold. Hailey holding the lavender box, her hand artfully resting on the gold ribbon. Caption: Hailey curated the perfect aesthetic. Every detail was so us. Rachel blinked. The ribbon was still tied, just like she had left it. She hadn't opened it. Had she even known who it was from? The comments blurred together as Rachel scrolled. Aunt Joanne. So proud of Brendan's fiancé. She's everything that family needed. Cousin Naomi. This party was actual goals. Sad some people couldn't make it. Brenda White, Frank's colleague. Hailey is just stunning. A perfect addition to the Whitmores. She didn't comment. Didn't like anything. Just watched. A text arrived at 12:31 a.m. Brendan, I hope you understand. It wasn't personal. We didn't want drama. Hailey really wanted peace that day. No sorry. No explanation for the gift being displayed like a prop from Pinterest. No mention that Rachel was ever supposed to be there. She put the phone down, stared at the ceiling. Somewhere beyond the wall, a neighbor's TV murmured softly. Her own apartment felt cavernous, every breath echoing back. The silence was familiar, but sharper now. The truth wasn't that they'd forgotten her. They'd rewritten her absence as her choice. She got out of bed, padded barefoot across the hardwood floor, and turned on her laptop. The blue light bathed her face as she typed in her work credentials and pulled up the Brava Dynamics employee directory. Her fingers moved deliberately, muscle memory more than thought. A quick filter. Department, Corporate Communications. Name, Hailey Summers. There it was. Summers Hailey, Communications Coordinator. Start date, March 11th, 2024. Rachel leaned back. Her breath caught somewhere between a laugh and something harder. So that's why Brendan had mentioned Hailey was settling into something new. He hadn't said where. Of course not. Rachel had worked at Brava Dynamics for nearly 7 years, long enough to remember the previous director's scandal, the mergers, the entire rebranding rollout. She knew every corner of that building, including the fact that communications was housed 2 floors below strategy, where her own office sat like a forgotten chess piece. And Hailey didn't know. Rachel clicked on Hailey's profile. No photo yet. No bio. She opened Hailey's LinkedIn next. Public, polished, but generic. Then the onboarding schedule from HR that had been emailed to her team weeks ago. Orientation, internal systems, tour of strategic partnerships. Rachel's name had been on the agenda. She'd skipped that day. Now she almost wished she hadn't. The irony burned low and steady. Hailey had walked into her professional home without knowing she was already sitting beneath its owner. In name, number but in tenure, reputation, influence. Rachel could fold Hailey out of that company with a single report to HR, if she wanted. She didn't want. Not yet. Instead, she closed the tabs and opened Instagram again. She watched the same carousel twice more. In one photo, Brendan's arm circled Hailey's waist. His smile looked easy, maybe even genuine. In another, her mother stood beside Hailey with her hand lightly touching Hailey's shoulder, like she belonged there. Rachel had never seen her mother touch her like that. Aunt Joanne's comment replayed in her head. She's everything that family needed. Rachel didn't cry. Not this time. She let her laptop screen dim, the hum of the fan filling the room like a slow exhale. Her gift had become part of their story, a silent, uncredited prop. That was always the role they gave her, present but invisible. Let them have their fiction. Let them post their perfect photos, their curated captions. Let them celebrate. Let them pretend. I'd see what happened when the truth showed up uninvited. They erased me from their story. Then someone accidentally put me back in. The restaurant was dimly lit and sleek, with soft jazz humming from hidden speakers and servers who moved like shadows between tables. It was the kind of place you booked a month in advance. The kind of place that whispered exclusivity in every detail. From the brushed gold cutlery to the minimalist floral arrangements blooming in crystalline vases. At the head of the long private table sat Hailey, glowing under the soft pendant lights. Her smile curated as perfectly as the evening's menu. Brendan leaned toward her, murmuring something only she could hear, and she responded with a tilt of her head and the practiced grace of someone used to being the center of attention. Across from her, Deborah sipped wine as if it were strategy. Frank sat 2 seats down, arms folded, not speaking much, only nodding occasionally to whoever addressed him. Aunt Joanne, dressed in a shade of plum a little too bold for the setting, scanned the room as if on alert for cracks in the veneer. Troy Chambers arrived 10 minutes late, slightly breathless, and carrying the easy confidence of someone who didn't quite know the rules, but assumed they bent for him. He greeted Hailey with a hug that was just a beat too long for formality and handed her a slim envelope with a handwritten, "Congrats," scrawled on the front. "Sorry, client call ran over," he said, sliding into the open seat at the far end. "But I couldn't miss this. You're killing it, Hailey." Hailey laughed lightly. "You're sweet. I'm just trying not to trip over the office politics." "Oh, please, you've got half the communications team wrapped around your finger already." He reached for a bread roll. "And besides, Rachel's been singing your praises." The clink of silverware halted. Someone dropped a fork. Hailey blinked. Deborah looked up sharply. "I'm sorry, Rachel?" "Yeah," Troy said, oblivious to the sudden drop in temperature. "Rachel Whitmore. Your daughter?" The silence that followed could have stretched a mile. Brendan's jaw tightened. Aunt Joanne leaned forward just slightly. Frank stared into his wine glass as if hoping for it to empty itself. Hailey set down her glass too quickly, the stem clinking awkwardly against the marble tabletop. "You mean Rachel from Brava Dynamics?" "Of course," Troy said, smiling. "She's the CEO, right? She was at the ops review yesterday. Spoke really highly of the project you're leading. Said you had real instincts." Hailey opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes flicked sideways toward Brendan, then toward Deborah, who had suddenly gone very still. "She's the CEO?" Troy's grin faltered. "Wait, didn't she tell you?" His gaze moved around the table now, registering the stiffness, the half-frozen expressions. I just assumed. I mean, same last name and all." "Different last name," Brendan muttered. "She never told me," Hailey said, voice barely above a whisper. She was pale now, one hand groping for her napkin. She knocked her water glass, which wobbled dangerously before settling. Troy sat back slowly. Wow. I thought you knew. I mean, she's kind of a big deal. Rachel's one of the sharpest people I've ever worked under. People listen when she speaks. She doesn't waste words." Aunt Joanne's wine glass didn't reach her lips. Her eyes never left Hailey. Someone coughed near the end of the table. A waiter approached, sensed the tension, and retreated. Deborah exhaled slowly through her nose. Her fingers curled around the strap of her purse like a reflex. Frank didn't look up. Brendan spoke again, clipped this time. We didn't exactly keep in touch. Troy, now acutely aware of the shift, glanced toward Hailey. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step in anything. Hailey didn't answer. She stared down at her plate, the edge of her linen napkin clenched in her hand, white against white. Aunt Joanne, eyes narrowing, finally spoke. Strange that no one mentioned it. Family achievement like that ought to be celebrated. No one responded. Troy reached for his water, his face flushed, his voice smaller. I'll just shut up now. But the damage was done. The name had arrived, spoken aloud without apology or context. It landed on the table with more weight than any toast could carry. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward. It was indictment. I wasn't there. But my name arrived before I ever had to. I knew they'd call eventually. They always do, when something breaks. The morning light was bright and indifferent, flooding the glass walls of Brava Dynamics like it didn't know or care what kind of week Rachel was having. She walked into the office with practiced ease, heels muted on the carpet, tailored blazer flawless, not a hair out of place. Her assistant, Madison, was already standing beside her desk, tablet in hand. There's a memo from HR marked urgent, Madison said quietly. Rachel didn't pause. Forward it. I'll handle it between the 10:30 and the board prep. Madison nodded and stepped away. Rachel's phone buzzed as she slid into her chair. 3 missed calls, all from the same number. The name Deborah Whitmore stared at her like it always had. Clinical, formal, as if even her mother's contact didn't want to admit a relationship. No voicemail. Just missed calls, as though the act of dialing alone absolved everything. Another ping, a single-line text from her father. Call me. It's urgent. She deleted it without opening. Then the email alert blinked in. Subject: role reassignment? From Hailey Summers to Rachel Whitmore. Hi, Rachel. Just wondering if there's a way we can, make things less weird. Maybe I could switch teams. Not that I've done anything wrong, lol, but like vibes. LMK. Rachel closed the email and sat back. Her eyes drifted upward to the ceiling, then to the skyline beyond the windows. There was always this moment, when people realized they didn't know who they were dealing with, when they finally understood. She clicked over to her internal inbox and drafted a new message. To HR Compliance. Subject: interpersonal conflict and role assignments. Hello, in light of recent developments, I'd like to ensure that all existing procedures regarding internal conduct and team dynamics are upheld. This is a standard reminder to avoid any semblance of impropriety or conflict of interest. Please process according to usual guidelines. Best, Rachel Whitmore, Chief Executive Officer, Brava Dynamics. She didn't mention Hailey. She didn't need to. Another message buzzed in. Brendan Whitmore. Why didn't you tell us? She stared at the screen. The question was a hollow one, bloated with implication, as if disclosure was owed to people who had never listened when she had been small and trying, as if silence hadn't been their shared language for years. Rachel locked the phone without replying. Later that afternoon, Madison appeared at her office door again, hesitating. HR says there's chatter about favoritism, she said carefully. Not from Hailey directly, but someone suggesting this could get messy. Rachel stood, walked to the window, and folded her arms. Then we clean it up. But clean doesn't mean quiet, she said. Document everything. Treat it like any other case. No escalations, no exceptions. Madison gave a small nod, then turned to leave. The rest of the day passed in routine. Slide decks, approvals, a vendor call, a report review. Rachel answered every request with measured calm, but she didn't check her phone again. That night, she sat in the glow of her living room lamp, laptop closed, blinds half drawn. Her phone rang. Same number. Deborah again. Rachel let it ring. The sound echoed through the quiet room like a memory she'd stopped believing in. They called again. I let it ring. They asked to meet, not to make things right, just to manage the damage. The rain came in threads, thin, persistent, and half-hearted, like even the weather didn't want to commit. Rachel sat by the window of the quiet café on 6th and McDowell, a cup of untouched coffee cooling in front of her. She didn't look at the door when the bell rang. She knew it would be them. They arrived 20 minutes late. Deborah was in a camel coat, hair done too carefully for a casual sit-down. Frank walked behind her with that familiar, stony silence that had passed for authority in her childhood. Brendan trailed last, carrying an envelope Rachel recognized instantly. Thick, ivory cardstock. Gilded edges. The kind used for gifts when you didn't know what someone liked, only that you owed them something. They approached slowly, like people unsure of the terrain. Traffic, Deborah offered, sliding into the seat across from Rachel without waiting for acknowledgement. Rachel didn't respond. Frank nodded once. Brendan gave a half-smile that didn't quite land. The envelope was placed in the center of the table, like an offering. Rachel glanced at it, then returned her gaze to the rain-tracing loops on the windowpane. Deborah cleared her throat. We wanted to talk, to find a way back to some sense of normalcy? Rachel cut in softly. Order? Control? No, just... Brendan leaned forward. We're still family, Rachel. She turned to him. Is that what you said when Hailey emailed HR calling my reaction toxic? Was that still family? Brendan faltered. Deborah's eyes flicked down. Frank shifted but didn't speak. Rachel exhaled slowly. Do you remember 5 years ago? Brendan, you called me after your second semester at Penn. You said, you always bail us out. And I did. Brendan looked down at his hands. Rachel continued, voice level. And when Mom and Dad needed the deposit for the new condo in Raleigh, who sent it without asking for a contract? Who covered 3 years of alimony after the split you kept secret from the extended family? Who wired that money within hours because no one else would? No one answered. Rachel looked at the envelope again, still unopened. I don't want repayment. I don't want recognition. She leaned in slightly. I just want you to remember who stood by you. And when you kicked them out. The silence was different now. Charged, brittle. Deborah's lips pressed into a line. Brendan looked like he wanted to speak but couldn't find the right shape for his apology. Frank remained motionless, as always, watching without reacting. Rachel pushed her chair back. I paid more than this, she said quietly, nodding at the untouched bill resting beside her coffee. And not just tonight. She stood, collected her umbrella, and turned without waiting. As she reached the door, she paused just long enough to say it without looking back. Don't call again. Next time you'll be forwarded to legal action. I never opened the invitation. I didn't need to. It said everything. The light filtered in through gauzy curtains, dancing gently across the hardwood floors of Rachel's apartment. It was a Saturday in early May, the kind of afternoon made for new beginnings. Bright, warm, absent of noise. Even the city outside seemed to pause. She sat on the couch, legs curled under her, fingers resting on the edges of her laptop. Across the room, the engagement party envelope lay on the side table, slightly creased, unopened since the day they'd handed it to her in that cafe. Its gold script had dulled in the sun. A reminder, a relic. Her inbox pinged. Subject, resignation, from Hailey Summers to Rachel Whitmore. Rachel, I've submitted my resignation, effective immediately. I don't expect forgiveness, but I am sorry. For everything. Hailey Rachel didn't reply. She read it once, then archived it. The weight it tried to carry never landed. Her phone vibrated seconds later. Madison Chen. Just saw the HR log. You handled this like no one else would. Proud to work under you. Rachel smiled, small, genuine, a flicker of warmth, nothing more. She typed back, "Thank you. That means more than you know." She stood and crossed the room, barefoot on the cool floor. The envelope sat waiting, like it always had, silent, theatrical in its stubborn presence. She picked it up, felt its weight, imagined the words inside. The false warmth, the forced civility, the obligation wrapped in formality. Without ceremony, she folded it once, then again. And then she tore it cleanly in half. The halves went into the trash without hesitation. She returned to her desk and opened her travel app. A few clicks later, the reservation was confirmed. A solo trip to Napa Valley, 5 days, open-ended itinerary, 1 seat. She closed the laptop, exhaled deeply, and walked out to the small balcony. The air was still. The wind had finally stopped pushing. Below, the world went on. Cars, footsteps, the occasional dog bark. But up here, there was peace. Not loud, not triumphant, just hers. She leaned on the railing, letting the sun touch her face. I won't rewrite the past, but I get to write everything else. They used to forget me in the background of their stories, cut from the photos, left off the guest lists, remembered only when something needed patching. For years, I swallowed the silence, told myself it was easier not to be difficult. I gave, I waited, I hoped. And still, the seat at their table never had my name on it. But this time, I didn't beg for a place. I didn't knock twice. I built my own room. When the truth finally slipped into their carefully curated narrative, my name, my position, my existence, they scrambled. Not to fix the past, not to apologize, just to contain the damage. I watched their panic from a quiet place of calm. It was the first time in years I didn't feel the urge to explain myself. They called and I didn't answer. They texted and I let the screen dim. And when they asked to meet, I said yes. Not out of hope, but out of clarity. I didn't go for closure. I went for precision. I sat across from them at that café, 20 minutes late on their clock, 5 years late on mine. They brought an envelope I didn't touch. They spoke of family, of misunderstandings, of timing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just listed what I'd given: money, support, silence, and what they'd returned: exile, dismissal, erasure. I'm not asking for repayment, I said. I just want you to remember who was there when you needed someone, and who you pushed out once you didn't. Then I stood. I left their check on the table, and walked away having finally paid the last price. Caring. Hailey resigned soon after, quietly. No ceremony, no farewell party, just a line in an email and an empty office. She said she was sorry. I didn't reply. Not out of anger, just because I didn't need to. The system I believed in had worked. The boundaries I drew had held. That was enough. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted air. So I took a Saturday and booked a solo trip to Napa Valley. No plans, no +1, no itinerary. Just me. The woman they forgot. The woman they underestimated. The woman who wrote her own ending. They'll probably tell the story differently one day. Say I was cold, distant, difficult. Maybe they'll even convince themselves I overreacted. That's fine. I won't be there to correct them, because for the first time, I'm not standing in their shadow, hoping to be seen. I am the author now. And I don't owe them a single page. I learned that silence is not weakness. It's choice. That forgiveness isn't automatic. It's earned. That justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks out quietly, head held high, bill unpaid. They thought I needed their validation to matter. But it turns out, all I needed was to stop asking. Like the final echo of a courtroom verdict, truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand. So if you're still waiting for someone to see your worth, maybe it's time to stop waiting. Maybe it's time to write your own name back into the story. Because no wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. If this story found you at the right time, maybe not with fireworks, but with a quiet nod, then let it sit with you. Drop me in the comments if you've ever been left off the list and decided you didn't need it anymore. Tell me where you're watching from, because voices like Rachel's deserve to echo far beyond one family's silence. Subscribe if you believe dignity doesn't require permission and justice doesn't need applause. Thank you for being here. Not everyone gets to rewrite their ending, but maybe today you just took the pen back.